Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leathercraft, and this is the Leather Element. If you've got a good question for us or a good idea for a leather element, drop it in the comment box below. Now this week, we get a lot of questions on threads, chisels, and needles. What goes with what? Well, for the most part with hand sewing, any goes with any, right? It's more of a personal call. But the bigger problem is this. For so long, and I've been in leatherwork a long time, it's just my opinion, but for the most part, we have had 4-strand and we've had 6-strand. Good luck with it, okay? But the second problem, we've had 4 basic colors, black, brown, beige, and white. Doesn't really get the creative wheels to turning, okay? Ritza, thank you very much, because now we have multiple sizes of thread and we have an array of beautiful colors. So let's start with threads, jump over here and look at our 4 thread sizes side by side. To make this as consistent as possible, and the best comparison I can make, I've got a piece of bridle leather and I've dropped in 4 groove lines. We're going to use 4 sizes of thread. We've got a 0.6 millimeter, 0.8, that's my favorite. In fact, that project is made with a 0.8, 1 and 1.2 millimeter. For the chisels, I'm going to use our 1/8 inch flat for each line. So again, consistent across the board. Colors, that's exactly what I was talking about. Are those not beautiful, rich colors? All kinds of design possibilities there. Okay, so I'm going to take this piece, drop in 4 chisel lines, drop in each of the 4 sizes. We'll get a good close-up, see what looks best to us. 4 stitch lines, clean and tight. Let's get a little better look at these. So up top, 0.6 millimeter. The second down is 0.8, then 1, then 1.2 millimeter. Now, all told, this is really up to you. What looks best for you? But also, the size of the project has a little bit to do with that. Now, up here, if we're working on safety equipment or tack, saddle, weight belts, yes, we can jump up to that 1.2, but that's a big stitch. That's going to look at a place on, say, something like a watch band or a smaller project. So therefore, I can back down. Now, I like the 8. That's my favorite. Looks good on most any project, but here's the biggest point. It's hand sewn. I want that visible. I can absolutely see that. Easy to sew with. Easy in and out of our chisel holes and our needle eye. No problem. Okay, speaking of needles, let's jump over. We're going to take a look at a couple of sizes of needles. Needles are a lot like thread. Forever we've had one option, and that's it. Now, it's not a bad needle. No sharp point. That's what we're looking for in a hand sewing needle. But also, too, that big eye. It's great for getting wax thread through, but we're going to break one of these on just about every project. In comparison, the John James needles. I started using these when I joined Weaver about 4 years ago. Believe it or not, I have not broken one. Now, bent one pretty bad, but let's don't go there. But nonetheless, very strong needle. Okay, let's get a close-up of these. So on the top, my favorite, that's a number 18. That's 1.09 millimeters. The next down is a number 17. That's a 1.42 diameter. And 16, 1.63 millimeter diameter. So that's a big needle. Now, it's great for our bigger lace. It's got a bigger eye. I struggle trying to get this thread through this needle. It can be done, but for the most part, I like the number 18, easy to work with. Now, one more. Notice that big boy. Okay, not necessarily for hand sewing. Well, it is if you're sewing a sail, but not necessarily leather. But I thought I'd throw that in there because that's huge. All right, chisels. Let's take a look at the differences in chisel types and lengths. Back to our English bridle. So I've got 6 lines. Now I've got 5 for 5 chisels. And then this line set off here by itself, that's going to be a let's don't do that line, okay? So let's start right here. I'm going to start with my favorite. Flat chisel. This is 5 stitches per inch, 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to drop this in. I'm going to make about 3 sets. Okay, very clean and crisp. That's coming in at about 5 stitches per inch. Let's jump over now to our 6 millimeter diamond. It's going to be a little bit different look. But right here, this too is right about 5 stitches per inch. And there we go, maybe just a little bit further on that. Now let's jump down to a 5 millimeter, which now we're getting to be about, I think this is a little more than 5 per inch, maybe about 6 stitches per inch. Okay, just a little bit short there. Now down to a 4 millimeter. Now we're up to about 7 stitches per inch. Okay, and down to our smallest. That is tiny, isn't it? So we're talking 3 millimeters here, 9 stitches per inch. Okay, now that is a tiny little stitch. One more. We're going to use a spacer wheel because we see this on cheap kits. Just looks awful. So with a spacer wheel, this is simply going to run along my groove line and show me where I need to place a hole. Now with that, I'm going to take absolutely our smallest hole punch, and I think that's a 3/32. So let's punch our holes. You know what? I kind of really don't care how many stitches per inch that is. That's going to look terrible. The point is, we see this on a lot of cheap projects or kits. So therefore, we're going to put some thread in there, see how that looks. But these are going to look spectacular. Okay, I'm going to jump over to my pony. I'm going to drop in some thread. Let's see what the difference is. Okay, for this, I'm going to use our number 18 needles and our 0.8 millimeter thread. I'm going to use that for our first 3 lines, our larger chisel. Then I'm going to jump down to the 0.6 for our 2 smaller. Down here, I don't know, we'll figure something out. Right. All right, so let's start right down here. Common saddler stitch. Okay, so there's our stitch. I'm going to pull that through, not that on the back, so it remains tight. But to me, that's a good combination. Easy on my hands, easy to sew. The needle fits the wax thread well. That's a very clean, good-looking stitch. Okay, going to jump up here, do the same thing to our next diamond chisel lines. And our last, okay, I'll knot that on the back. But thus far, those are 3 good-looking stitches. We're starting to see a little bit more of that diamond effect here, where that's simply a flat stitch. All right, let's jump over to our 0.6 and do our last 2. And one more there. Okay, now that's a tiny stitch. But all told, that's beautiful, very clean. So we might reserve these 2 chisels and thread and needle for our smaller projects. Say again, like a watch band, or maybe the pockets in a wallet. Okay, let's jump down to this smallest. Now when we're sewing this, typically with a saddler stitch, we're going to push both needles through at the same time, make an X, move our fingers. But the problem here is this hole is too small for both needles. I can get them through, but let's do this. I'm going to pull one needle through, and then I'm going to pull that back towards me. That's going to open up that hole. So therefore, when I come through with my other needle, I'm not worried about splitting my stitch, and that needle slides right through. Then I can add some tension. Okay, there we go. I'll tie that knot shortly. But that is one tight little stitch line. Now 2 points on this. Chrome tans don't typically have as much body as our veg does. So the 2 smaller stitches, that's going to look nice on a chrome. But secondly, right here, the integrity of this stitch line. That's an awful lot of hole compared to leather through there. So I don't really know how strong that's going to be. But again, for our smaller projects, that's going to be no issue. Okay, our last line, I've got some 1 millimeter thread loaded on my needles. Let's sew this and see what happens. Okay, I'm not going to sew anymore, but on that one, I think you'll agree, that just looks terrible. Yeah, typical of an inexpensive kit. All right, I'm going to hammer our stitch lines down. Then let's get a good close-up of this. I am happy with every one of these stitch lines. Okay, closer look. So up top, we've got our 1/8 inch flat, 6 millimeter diamond, 5, 4, and 3 millimeter diamond. Now, if you're new to leather, I would suggest, just my opinion, but I would suggest starting with your flat chisel. It's a big hole, so it's easy to get both needles through. You can move pretty quickly, but also it's a good looking, very strong, consistent stitch. Also, I would say start with our John James number 18 and our 0.8 wax thread. That's a good place to start. From there, Expand your horizon because there's all kinds of ways we can go and they all look great. Well, I hope this is good information for you. Help you pick just the right chisel, just the right thread, and just the right needle to create a stitch line that looks good to you, because that's all that's important. Now, beginners, dive into hand sewing. It's easy, it's fast, and biggest point, it's a good bit this side of an expensive sewing machine. So as always, I hope this is good information for you. Thanks for taking time to watch The Leather Element. Good luck with your projects.